Good evening, everybody in the sane and rational universe. All five of you, welcome to a political discussion with Dean and Paul. I got to start things off with a little bit of truthing. Very important thing. I want to let all of our viewers and listeners know that despite Dean Esme's vicious campaign of slander and hate on Twitter, it was not my fault that we were here a day late.
Yes, it was. You came to me and said, "Hey, I got to reschedule." What the hell?
Oh, no. I did not. I came and I showed up for the show on time. You had the time fucked up and were not there. So then I had to reschedule.
See,
God damn it. Don't vote for Esme.
Don't, definitely. You don't want me in charge.
I was going to vote for Esme for president. That's over. That's over now.
We missed each other by 5 minutes, but whatever.
Whatever. It happens. Shit happens. And what can I say? This is a freebie, so neither of us care that much.
So we were told that we don't understand political commentary because we brushed aside the notion that Bernie Sanders can pay for his programs. And this seems to have also been used to assert a pro-Trump bias, which is interesting because I'm pretty sure both of us said we're not sure he'd be a good president, just that his talent set would certainly bring some things.
Well, yeah, I mean, to clarify, folks, we had a long-time listener, not going into personalities because it's not fair to them, but I mean, it is fair to the conversation to point out that we had quite a long-time listener basically flounce on us as Trump supporters. I seem to recall in that very episode saying I don't think Trump would make a good president. How that makes me a Trump supporter, I don't know, and I'll say it again. And I think that the facts of that are starting to reveal themselves, that Trump would not make a good president. Trump makes a great candidate. He makes a wonderful not necessarily a nominee, but a candidate in terms of shaking up the system, making the establishment crap their pants. But do I want Trump as president of the United States? Nope, I do not. Let me make it clear. I do not. I don't endorse anybody, but I offer this absolute, unqualified lack of endorsement for Donald Trump. There, I've said it. Anybody have any questions? Put them in the comments.
I think I'll say the same too. I think Bernard Sanders would be a terrible president in a lot of aspects. We did, without going into it, I think one of the reasons we didn't go into we didn't think Bernie Sanders is going to win the nomination. I still give him almost no chance of that. I don't know if any election math has changed on that.
It would take, I think I read at last point something like him having to win 88% of the remaining delegates, including a bunch of super delegates, which he has not been able to win against. Clinton has done basically a sweep of super delegates. And for those of you that don't know, super delegates are not bound to vote at the convention for any particular candidate. They can go in there and vote any way they want. Which makes them a very valuable asset during a convention. Sanders has almost none.
Yeah, and so it just seemed like you can't. I mean, I don't want to disrespect the Bernie fans. I'm not a socialist. He is one. But it's not like he's the world's. If you go to BernieSanders.com, he does have a page on how Bernie pays for his proposals. And I will state definitively, some of those are reasonable proposals.
Dean, I'm sorry you opened the door to something, so I have to ask. Yeah, you said, and I believe you quite clearly, that you're not a socialist. But, it's been alleged by a lot of the right-wing nutcases out there that you are, in fact, a communist.
Well, yeah, but that's different than socialism.
Oh, okay.
No. No, listen, I to me, it's one of the frustrations I get, and I know people have this, there's an either or, it's either the free market or it's government, one or the other, socialist, collectivist, come on. There is nothing at all unreasonable with a nation having prudent policies that make a stable middle class possible. I mean, I can list all sorts of things that I think sane conservatives should support that are government spending. For example, rehabilitation programs, real ones for prisoners, so they're less likely to become recidivists. Oh, I'm sorry, is that bleeding heart liberal shit, or is it a way to stop spending so much money on prisoners who go in and out of that place like it's a revolving door?
Yes, goddammit, we should just kill them all.
Well, I'm saying, right? And, youth job training programs, it's really hard for me to be against those because seriously, I benefited from one back before the government cut them in the 80s. There was something called CETA. I benefited from it. I knew other people who did. I've met business owners who were like, yeah, I got small business administration loan. I got this tax break because I was willing to go into that industry. And I'm like, what's wrong with any of that, right? So
that's where I depart with, even though I identify as a conservative libertarian, this is where I depart with a lot of my brothers and sisters in that particular set of ideals. There is no such thing, in my opinion, as a bad investment in education.
I used to say that. What happened to the universities? But sorry.
Well, that wasn't an investment in education.
Yeah, it really wasn't, because it was an unrealistic way of doing it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why Common Core is toast for good reason. And some would argue that that is an investment in education, but it's not. But when I'm saying educating people versus incarcerating them, really pretty much of a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned, except perhaps in the case of violent criminals. You have to lock them up. But so many of the people that we have languishing in prisons aren't violent, well, at least not until they get to prison.
Yeah, well, and so, in fact, the prison industrial complex is a thing. See, you lefty liberals, listen a little bit. We're not just fucking, I mean, you can't have an ideal society. That's the great left-wing delusion.
Yes, it is.
My criticism of the right is a little more deeper, but mostly seems to be based on pining for a past that also didn't exist. But in the final analysis, do I think when you go look at BernieSanders.com, there's a section how Bernie pays for his proposals. Some of that is reasonable, some of it isn't. Guess what? It's hard for me to take any of it seriously because I've been through so many presidential campaigns and other political campaigns and watched what the politicians say they're going to do, and then I match it against what they get done. And it's always, I don't know, 20-30% maybe for a presidential campaign, really.
If we're lucky. Or if, depending on how you look at it, if we're lucky, it's only 20-30%.
Well, right. So it's like, it's always been hard for me to just look at it and say, here, I'm going to be a policy wonk, and I'm going to get out a spreadsheet and a calculator. I'm going to analyze every one of these programs. It's actually really hard for me to bother. And that may sound shallow, but come on, there's thousands of pages probably in the end of analysis you could do for each candidate. The real question is, what can they get done? And that even goes to my criticism of most people who are into presidential politics, whether they're into Trump right now or Sanders, or I guess the GOP is lining up behind Cruz. Pretty clearly it's going to be Hillary's show. So those are the more establishment candidates.
Yes, in fact, we are 1 week closer at this point to my prediction about the Republican National Convention coming to fruition. I predicted last week, and I'm going to reiterate that now again because circumstances point toward my possibly being right. Of course, if they didn't, I would be talking about something else. But right now, Cruz has a slight lead in Wisconsin. That lead appears to be building. That's 46 delegates right there. If Cruz takes Wisconsin, it's going to feed into the Stop Trump movement, which is going very strong in the Republican establishment right now, is going to set up even closer to a contested convention. And a contested convention, I don't know who's between Trump and Kasich, because I still think Kasich is actually a possibility to get the delegates behind him at the actual convention. And he's the most qualified for the job. But when it gets down to it, I think Trump is out. It doesn't matter.
You think Trump is over? You think Trump is over?
I think he is over in terms of having any real possibility of being the nominee for the Republican Party. I know, call me crazy, but watch what happens.
You may just be right. I don't know. I'm going to go back and forth, right? I'm going to stick with what I said, which is that I guess maybe somebody heard me say Trump is a master strategist and took that to mean in all things. And like, no, he's really good at being Donald Trump. Really good. And you don't get to be a multi-billionaire. Yes, he had breaks. Yes, whatever. You get it. You don't get to where he is without having some real talent in certain directions.
Oh, sure. He's brilliant.
Right. But that it's like, and I'm convinced most of the loudmouth shoot from the hip stuff he has said in the past, I'm going to stick by my view that with Trump, about 80 to 90% of it is calculated and thought through before, and he's just kind of, he practiced popping off, if you know what I mean, right? He looks like, he's just waiting for the excuse to rip out the line that he was talking to his people about last night or whatever. But once in a while, he does just pop off. I'm actually a little surprised. I guess I shouldn't be. Really what I'm hearing is his comments on abortion that really just did him in that fast?
I think it is. I view it more not as a standalone incident, but the narrative about Trump being thoughtless when it comes to actual policy and high on rhetoric, high on narrative, has been being hammered for a long time. And he came across in his comment, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Trump went on national television and said he thinks that women who got abortions should be punished for doing so.
But then in the same interview, did he not climb back and say, no, it would be I would punish the doctor. She's a victim.
And I think anybody but Donald Trump is able to undig holes of that sort pretty readily, because everything they do is not being so constantly challenged. And he's not, most politicians don't skate the edge of pissing off all constituencies as much as Donald Trump does. So his ability to undig is more limited than a Ted Cruz or a John Kasich.
Now you've just made it make sense to me, because here's what I think may have happened. If we're going with the theory that it's just the abortion question that he flubbed, that whole idea that he really is mean to women,
that
would immediately, certain parts of the conservative coalition that likes him now would all of a sudden chill on him.
Absolutely. Well, he's lost the women's vote, or he has been helped in losing the women's vote with people reframing his narrative. Gee, some of us are familiar with that one. But he's lost a lot of confidence in women, and then he comes out that women who get abortions should be punished. Now, there's a lot of pro-life women out there who have had abortions. That's why they are pro-life. Is because they feel the consequences emotionally from having an abortion. So he managed to offend all of them. He managed to offend the pro-life lobby, and he managed, of course, to give the pro-choice lobby a gotcha, to say, see there, he wants not just to come after abortions, he wants to come after women. I don't think he undigs himself from that quite so easily. The delegate counts right now are pointing more and more to a contested convention, where so many of the delegates on the first ballot, they don't have a choice, but on the second ballot,
it's anybody's game.
It's anybody's game. And that's where Trump's organization, here's another factor in that's real important. Trump is a really good campaigner. He's really good at getting attention, free media time, and everything else. But he is not an organized politician in the same light that Ted Cruz is. Ted Cruz has the machine and the capacity to work that convention crowd 10 times better than Trump.
All right. So then that gets to the more bigger question, which to me, this is all the social aspect of this is 10 times more interesting than to me. I'm sorry. I know some people wanted to get into what they call it wonkery. Have you ever heard that term, wonk?
Oh, yes.
A wonk literally is the guy that the candidate hires whose job is to write his policy positions to him so that they make sense. And half the time he doesn't even know what his position. He goes to his wonks. And I don't know, I can't remember where the word wonk came from, but
I think it was from Willy Wonka. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that.
But it's always because actually, I actually have pity on everybody who runs for office, but especially if it's a big one, because literally, man, you've got to have a list of 100 positions ready.
Yep.
And you're not always going to get them right. I actually, so it's real, like I was saying earlier, it's real hard for me to dive into a candidate's specifics because I don't believe them, even the most honest ones, because what comes out the other end of the sausage making process just doesn't look like the campaign. It just doesn't. They'll maybe get one big idea through, maybe two. Everything else will be little pissy things, and it'll always be different than what they promise. So it's just like, yeah. But socially, what I see going on here is people hate each other. And I have to admit, I have a deep-seated hostility myself right now to practically everybody in politics. They're all awful, and people are. But what it says is that we're very fractured as a country. I honestly wonder what will happen. And I don't mean Trump voters are inherently violent people. That is a slander they do not deserve. Just like this, it is a slander that Bernie people are inherently nonviolent. But man, if their candidates, especially in Trump's case, only because he'll probably have the most delegates. And so he'll probably have the most credible case, right? Yep. But even the Sanders people could get very bad and not act well. And I don't blame the campaign so much as people, right? I mean, some have questioned, is the story of Sanders people getting violent believable? And they throw doubt on that. I'm sorry, you're talking to the wrong person here. First off, I'm from Chicago, so I know Rahm Emanuel and his police department will be Democratic Party apparatchiks. I'm sorry, that's Chicago. It's how it works there. Second, I've actually dealt with the kind of deranged leftist nuts who, not all of them, but some of them are clearly there in the Sanders campaign. And those people will get violent. They'll get censorious. They'll do almost anything. So when I hear that some far left wackaloons attack Trumpites, I'm like, I'll believe it. Sorry if I won't be skeptical. I've dealt with these people. And so, yes, I believe, based on experience, there's some violent people in Bernie's camp. There's some violent people in Trump's camp. There's probably the establishment candidates don't have that because, frankly, they're wealthier and more well-established, and they're not likely to do that. But I'm actually worried about Americans. I don't know. Civil War is too big of a word, but man, it feels like 1968, Paul. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, this harkens back to my youth, man. I tell you, I'm looking at pulling out, going into my duffel bag and pulling out some tie-dyed T-shirts and headbands and all kinds of other paraphernalia and starting to relive it. I also just want to comment that during this election, one thing we're seeing proven over and over again is that George Carlin was right. When you have a shallow, uninformed, ignorant, suck-ass constituency, you get shallow, uninformed, suck-ass candidates. That's what we're living with now. This is a reflection. I mean, people can think that there's this huge difference between Bernie and Trump, and there is a big difference between them. But the process, this goddamn circus we're watching, a lot of people would say, well, yeah, it's inspired by the people are pissed off at the system. Well, you are the system. This is what you've been voting for your whole lives. This is what the American people have been supporting and fighting with each other over whose whore is going to be in charge for a long, long time.
Yeah, and this is where the Bernie people will like me better. I don't think so. I think the media, both the corporate and the government interests, have lined up to rig the system in certain ways that these are almost always predictable outcomes.
Well, I'll
I
go
think
with
the
Chris
average
Rock
person.
on that one. The media never taxed the shit out of me.
No, well, well, no, really. I mean, the media environment and everything else is all slanted to make certain results always happen. And one of the results that always happens is the two major parties sort of merge into a single party as a matter of everyday governments. They put on show fights over things like abortion that aren't really going to change that much.
Yep.
I mean, do you realize that if the pro-life lobby got their way, we'd still have abortions because they wouldn't get everything they wanted? And if you let the radical pro-choicers get complete control of everything they wanted, no, they wouldn't, because that would last for 5 minutes, and they'd say, you want everyday abortions at 9 months? What? Right? The whole thing is almost a show. It's set up to distract us. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories. It's almost like bread and circuses, though.
I take issue with your use of almost.
I don't think the average voter has the power to make a difference, and I think the average voter feels that. So when you say the electorate's responsible, I'm like, I can't jive that with my own feeling that I can't influence any of these fuckers. And
well,
that's
I
not
say
because
that
my views are that weird.
I say that in terms of, for instance, we know that Social Security system is a loser. It's going down. It's just, if you just use mathematics and calculate the number of people over 65, over retirement age, versus the number of young people working to pay into Social Security, you know that it doesn't work. That it is on the verge of collapse, that we've been also abusing it and borrowing from it in many ways that we shouldn't have. But the fact of the matter is, a politician cannot stand up and say, we have to eradicate Social Security, because if they do, the electorate won't stand for it. The electorate will not vote for that person.
I am personally skeptical of claims, frankly, that programs like Social Security can't be sustained. I think they can. We have to deal with the fact that they have to get modified and all that.
So excited. I told you he was a communist.
Governments are immortal entities. The bill never actually comes due. They can run into debt forever. What you have to do, though, is have a reasonable balance between the number of workers who are on it versus the number who aren't, and we're not achieving that. So just putting it out there, I don't totally agree with you that Social Security should be abolished.
Well, maybe Jack Kevorkian could help.
Well, there's the thing, and that is a real concern. I mean, it goes to a deeper social issue for me, which is that I see we have a society that is shuffling young people or old people into nursing homes, which are terrifying things, especially the ones that run solely on state funding, because people aren't taking care of their family members or whatever. And that to me is really horrible. In fact, it's one of the worst things about the country is that people don't take care of family anymore. Sorry if that sounds a little old-fashioned.
No, it's not old-fashioned. Well, it may be old-fashioned, but that doesn't have any bearing on whether or not it's true. It is true, and it's a crying out loud shame that we have come to this point as a society. But of course, what else could we expect in a society that for the past 40 years has gone into overdrive on extirpating fathers?
Well, it has. And to me, I know this is a little change. It also gets into the whole, what I call hyper individualism, that I think Americans got sold the bill of goods on as well. No man's an island. And no, the alternative isn't socialism, but this whole idea that you can truly make it by yourself if you just work hard. There's too many people, especially guys, who have ashes in their mouths from realizing that's a false promise. And it's not because they didn't work hard.
Speaking of false promises, why don't we go ahead in the time we have left and take a look at Burns' promises, what he wants to do, how he wants to pay for them. Do you have that page up?
Yeah, I have it. Some
Can
of
you
it
lead the way on this?
Oh, see, there's the thing. I mean, I started looking at it. I can't. There's so much, but you know what? How about we both point out one or two things we think, hey, that's not bad, and one or two things where we go, eh. All right, I'll give you one that I think I'm like I'm probably on board completely. $5.5 billion youth jobs program. Drop in the bucket. I'm sorry, great idea. Do that. I mean, execute properly. I'm great with that idea.
Yep.
A
So am I. I
payroll
must be turning red, but
a payroll tax of $1.61 a week for the American worker. He's going to pay for family medical leave by $1.61 a week for the typical American worker. I doubt his numbers on that one. I mean,
no, I
might be
doubt his
right.
numbers, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that was a 12-week program.
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
12 weeks of family leave, I guess, per family member. So a husband and wife would get a combination of 24 weeks leave per year.
Yeah, and I know some guy with a calculator is going to be there wanting to tell me all over the place why that math works. And maybe you're right, but you're not going to convince me. You're not going to convince me. I may be
Well, they can convince
closed-minded,
me
but
if they're right.
or that you could play for
But this is where the libertarian in me comes out to call and calls bullshit. It is not the obligation of companies to do anything but make money.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
don't. I disagree radically with that notion.
I do. Well, okay. Well, we could disagree on that. That's fine. But anyway, my take is companies are responsible to make money. Sometimes in the course of making money, you look at the bottom line, and in order to attract quality employees, you provide things like medical insurance and family leave, and that works out to be to the benefit. But the moment that we say that an employment entity must do this or that, and the government is going to come in to enforce it, is going to take money for it, you end up with waste and corruption, and you end up with less people employed and able to get those benefits. That is a bit of math that I think all the plans in the world can't cover.
Well, fair enough. Although I would just point out to you there that I actually believe things like companies have a social responsibility. I do believe that, and I guess you'd call me, and people are going to scream I'm a socialist. No, it's more of an Adam Smith capitalist. You may say it's old-fashioned. I don't care. A businessman was bringing stuff to his community, but he answered the people in his community. Large corporate entities don't, and that's one of my biggest problems with them. And so when I hear that these mass conglomerates are only obligated to make profits, I'm like, are we even obligated to let them exist? And then people get mad at me.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not making an argument for completely unbridled capitalism. I think any student of history that looks at 19th century America in urban areas and what was happening in factories, you can't make any kind of moral case for unbridled capitalism there, because unless there are some limitations, some laws that govern what companies are allowed to do, you end up basically with slavery.
It's interesting, and this wraps around to both our points of view or what we're saying. It's getting into history, but what the hell? There's this famous book by Upton Sinclair called The Jungle, which references a number of the things you're talking about, horrible things going on in the meatpacking industry and stuff like that, just hideous things capitalists were doing in the 19th century. And you say, yeah, but they were providing jobs. Shut the fuck up. Go read that, okay? But, at the same time, if you read enough on Upton Sinclair, at the time he wrote it, he was an angry socialist pointing Jacques Hughes at the system, and within about 10 years or so, he had almost done a 180. He hadn't become a raging capitalist advocate, but he's like, no, I've seen what the socialists do too. It's horrible. So, grasping for the easy answers is what bothers me. And maybe that ultimately gets to the, at least redound somewhat to the smaller government people, because the government is more complex, nobody can keep track of it all anymore. And
You
that
know,
is a
many
problem.
years ago, Dean, I heard somebody, not heard, I saw them actually write in a newspaper, I forget which one it was, that the real tragedy here was going to be the loss of jobs involved. You know what thing they were talking about?
What?
Bhopal.
Oh, geez. See, oh, right. Oh, does the audience know about Bhopal? It was Dow Chemical. Um, they acted irresponsibly, and a lot of people died. Now,
Yes, they
some
had a
said it
big,
was
it
exaggerated.
was a leak of methyl isocyanate that,
Okay.
that just killed, wiped out. I forget how many people it was, in the thousands.
Right. Right. It
And somebody
was
opined
beyond
that the
hideous.
tragedy was the loss of jobs.
Right. Right. Nobody's got the perfect system, but I just don't know. I don't know how people do it. How can you just be a hardcore socialist? How can you just be a hardcore capitalist? How can your worldview be that simple? And or just say, oh, you're just kind of a weaselly third wayer. No, how about we start thinking more creatively about things? I just argued that the system as it is
Don't do
can't
that,
do it.
Dean. You'll make people think. And they need Fox News and CNN to tell them their own talking points.
Or MSNBC. Worst of all, sorry, my lefty friends, but oh my God, talk about left wing corporate media. Oh,
Yeah.
MSNBC. Holy shit. I thought Fox News had gotten bad. I started watching MSNBC
And
again.
they have.
Oh, they have gotten worse. They've all gotten. Actually, Fox News used to be better 10 years ago, and I don't think that's because I'm old. I think it's because people like Brit Hume are in there and we're at least trying to be a real news organization. That went out the window somewhere. I don't
Well,
know
now
where
they
exactly.
they do stuff like bring Brit Hume and Carl Cameron in every 8 or 9 hours for 2 minutes just to have the appearance of some sort of sanity and integrity.
Yeah, yeah, and I get, oh, it's commentary, it's entertainment. Great, please stop making my news entertainment. I'm sorry. I even remember John. Well, we're just rambling, but screw it. I remember some years ago, Jon Stewart got a big round of applause by going on CNN Crossfire and attacking people. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Jon Stewart should have been looking in a mirror because he's a shallow motherfucker who spins all the time too. He puts on a
Sure.
show. He puts on a show of trying to be fair, but he's about as fair as Bill O'Reilly. Sorry. And actually,
Oh my God, Dean, you aren't questioning the great O'Reilly.
uh, actually, when I look at the Fox people, now I know I'm going to hear from him, right? I like Bill O'Reilly more than I like some of those people. he he's at least, that's what actually is a good comparison, because he at least makes a show of trying to be fair, and sometimes is, which you could also say of Jon Stewart. But they're both still playing the same game.
You know who's most entertaining on Fox to me? Megan, what's her name?
Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, because
She's
she
been there
has a
forever.
hard on for Trump. Trump scorned that bitch. And she has been every time Trump sneezes now, she's like, "Did you see that?"
Yeah.
Hell
So
hath no fury, folks.
what I actually want to see, I'm actually, I made my prediction, so I'm going to stand by it. I think Trump still gets the nomination, but I'll tell you honestly, I am starting to doubt too. The one thing that I kept thinking it's not happening, it's just not going to happen, seems to be happening. Well, they finally got him, and they pinned him good on something that his own constituency doesn't feel bad about, good about. But I will repeat my assertion that he is a master strategist. No master strategist ever got through anything without getting egg on his face a few times. That's part of master strategy, I think. Just like, oh, get ready to get egg on your face. He's got time to recover. And
You may be absolutely right. The time will obviously tell. If you and I both manage to keep sucking air until the convention, we're going to find out
and
who gets the.
I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say we're going to find out who gets the nomination. I still think that we're looking at a contested convention and that the nominee will be somebody other than Trump. I think Hillary gets it on the other side. And as far as the question about what do we title this? Can Bernie pay for his programs? The answer is no, but you can, which is exactly what he wants to happen.
The real question is, can Bernie make his programs happen? And the answer is probably not.
No.
And that's kind of why I can't really, I'm not going to plunge my head into all that paperwork. It may sound shallow, but some of his ideas are good. Most of them aren't going to get through. He's not going to win anyway. You may not like hearing it, but the math has shown that.
Yeah, and besides that, I still don't think, even in this day and age, that America is ready to elect a socialist president.
And I'll just say this: if Donald Trump wins, you're not getting a 20-foot wall along the Mexican border. I'll predict that one right now. You're not getting it.
Yeah, but you are. Mexico's going to pay for it.
Oh, for fuck's sake, man. I used to live down there. I got family involved in the government work that secures that border. Let me tell you, no wall's going to happen. And if it does happen, Rick Perry, who may be a stupid dipshit, the governor of Texas, still said it right. All you're going to do is make a big industry and 20-foot ladders in Mexico. That ain't going to do shit. I'm sorry, he's right, but they don't want to hear it. Just like Sanders people don't want to hear that Bernie Sanders is overreaching in what he's trying to do. I mean, maybe you should admire a guy for shooting for the stars. I don't know. But it's not going to happen. And in the meantime, the electorate is getting, I mean, if you're correct on Trump, I predict fistfights on the floor of the Republican National Convention.
Oh, I think they're guaranteed. I think that's going to happen. I think there's going to be fistfights on that floor for sure.
Probably not among the Democrats, and not because the Democrats are better, per se, that they're too good for that. 1968. Go read what happened to the 1968 Democratic Convention. Oh my goodness, that was the source of one of the best lines in political history from the mayor of Chicago, Richard Daley, the original Daley. Because yes. I mean, there were riots, there were cops, there was National Guard. There were people just being knocked around by billy clubs. There's tear gas. There's, I mean.
Oh yes, the whole world is watching.
And Mayor Daley gets up and tells everybody to calm down, and he says the police are not here because the police were accused of beating people up they didn't need to and stuff. And of course, he defends the police.
You mean those same police I saw beating people up on video?
He angrily thundered, the police are not here to cause disorder. They are here to preserve disorder.
And what a job they did.
Part of me wants to be upset. Part of me goes, look at history. People used to just, I mean, the history of political, I mean, it might even be refreshing. The way Thomas Jefferson and people who were running against Jefferson and Adams, who were friends, in fact, were just viciously nasty to each other. This is, in like the early 1800s, right? Or is it the late 1700s? When Harry Truman is actually famous for the line, "If you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen." Yep. And that's because Harry Truman, who left office in more than half a century ago, he came up out of Kansas City, which was a very corrupt political machine, a Republican political machine, but he was a Democrat. And he was a scrapper, and he was a fighter, and he was actually well known for swearing at people and cussing at them and all sorts of calling them names. And he said he can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. This is what politics is. So part of me is like, maybe I should stop wringing my hands.
Did he say that before or after Hiroshima and Nagasaki?
It was after. It was after. Well,
I know. That's cold, folks. That's cold.
That's what he meant by, if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. It's like somebody had asked him about the nastiness in politics, and it's just more of like, this is the way it is. Deal with it.
Yep.
And I guess I can understand that. But I think we've got a country that's really, really upset with each other right now.
Yeah, and it's at least for anything else, it's entertaining. Well, folks, I think that brings us about, we are running over, which we have been pledged not to do. So Dean, you got anything else you want to say before we wrap this up and get on down the road toward next week?
I was about to say something funny, but it'll just come out wrong. But, I hope everybody
Oh man,
just,
come on! I live for those moments.
oh, fine, Bernie's a communist, Trump's a fascist, and we're all going to hell. How about that?
Hey, yeah, there we go. That works
No,
for me.
I don't actually think that, but
And if you can't stand hell, get out of the kitchen.
all right.
All right, folks. Thanks again for joining us. Dean and I will be next week with another election update where we're going to once again prove that I am most frequently right about everything.
All right. Take
And with
care.
that, take care. We'll see you next time.